What's going on, everybody? Y'all know what it is, man. I'm your host, Pitts. Pitt Sports Zone, Bowie TV, coming to you live in color. Once again, every Wednesday it's going down 6:30. You got myself, Pitts, and you got AKA Tiger, Coach Bernard Clark Jr., through the eye of the Tiger, Robert Morris University head coach is going down. What's going on, Coach?
Not much, man. Right now, Pitts, this is my only bright spot during the week. The rest of the week, I'm about to kill everybody. All these daggum L's we've taken, losing my mind around here.
Well, I'm glad I can brighten up the moment for you, because I know it's been a tough season, tough sledding thus far, man. You know, one victory in a season full of potential. Let's just kick off and let's talk about Long Island University and the things that transpired in the game on last Saturday.
Again, man, it goes back to, defensively we had another strong game. We were able to hold them to 17 points. First drive, go out there, defense stops them. They do a good job. I think they only score in the second quarter, and then they don't score again until the fourth quarter. It's just one of those situations. But I think we had another turnover that led to a touchdown. So, and the thing about it, offensively, we had Zach back, so we thought some things would click the way we thought they would click. We thought they'd go in the right direction, but it took a while for him to get warmed up, and he really didn't get warmed up until the fourth quarter. So once he got warmed up in the fourth quarter, Zach started doing his thing, but it took him a while to get there. But we still think he's the best option that we have to keep our team going in the right direction. But again, it was still a loss. You can sit here and try to make light of it. This is good, that's good. All that's fine and dandy, man. But what it boils down to, man, the only stat that matters is that W. If you ain't getting those W's, you just ain't happy. It's not a happy situation.
We talk a lot about complementary football. We talk about offensively, defensively, special teams, and over the last couple of weeks, you mentioned how the defense had maintained, and they limited the amount of missed tackles. They're corralling to the ball. Opportunities when they present themselves, etc. What is something, because I'm a firm believer that you can coach all day, but if the team isn't following what's being coached, like a lot of NFL players say, the coaches coach, players play.
Yes.
There's only but so much you can do as a coach, and I don't necessarily believe that just because a team is losing, that means that they're not being coached properly.
I'm with you, and I think we're coaching them hard. It's just, it goes back to what I've been saying, since we started Pitts, and that is, are they able to do the things that we want them to do? And is it too much on their plate? So as a coach, you're trying to peel the banana back and peel the onion back and see, can we get to the core of what's going on, and can we put these guys in a position where they can just play faster without thinking? Because what it boils down to, I mean, we're losing football games, but at the same time, man, it's mental stuff. You go back and you watch run fits. They're not there. You see a guy not run his route properly. You see a guy not hug the red line, when he's running a route. You see an offensive lineman not put his head on the outside. Things that you coach, but those are things that have to be executed. Those are mental things that you just can't have in a football game. And those are the things that you worry about on a football day. When a team is beating you physically, if you go out there and that team just physically beats you behind, there ain't nothing you can do about it, because they were just better than you were. One of our guys, he went in and tried to block a field goal, and he got hit by a guy. He said, "Coach, there's nothing I can do about that." I said, "You're right. There ain't nothing you can do about that. All you can do is go back and get ready for the next play. But if you go out there and don't run the proper technique and don't go inside and do the things you're supposed to do and don't get the block, then it's a problem." So it's more mental right now, which is really, really frustrating for me and very disappointing, because as coaches, we feel like we're putting in the work, but mentally we can't get these guys where they need to be at.
When we talk football, being in the mental block is because as we've spoken on many occasions, that football is a mental game.
Mm-hmm.
So in defeat, there comes a mental letdown, not physical letdown. It's an exhaustive mental, socially letdown. How would you say the morale of the team is mentally as we go further into the season?
They don't like losing, but it's like I told you again, the camaraderie of this team is unbelievable. Every day at practice, they're competing. Every day at practice, they got energy. Every day they're going at each other. It's just those mental mistakes are killing us in the football game more than anything else. But the biggest issue is a lot of those mental mistakes, we're still trying to correct them in practice. And that's where it becomes a battle of the wills is we need them correcting them as much as we're correcting them.
Right.
And that has more to do with it than anything else. It goes back to what you said. I'm agreeing with you 100%. Once it's a player-led team, once you get a player-led team, that's when you start winning football games. It has nothing to do with talent. There are teams that we may have more talent than, but if they're playing together as a unit, if they understand what they're doing, if they're disciplined, if they're running the things they're supposed to do, if they're fitting the way they're supposed to fit, and we may have more talent, we're not going to beat them because they're a better team than we are. Not that they're more athletic than we are. They're just a better team. And so we're up against that situation right now. We're just getting out-coached and outplayed because we're not playing the mental part of the game, and that's what's so frustrating and disappointing right now.
When, we talk about, mental fatigue, and I know a couple of weeks ago you were talking about, after practice you're having your team run gases, right? Because that's one thing when it comes to football, physical fatigue sets in. Mentally, you already counting it out. So the intention of running the gassers to mentally break that block.
Right.
And the physical fatigue, how have your team responded in the just the physical nature and in the fatigueness? Is it are they tired? Is it overwhelming?
No, it's overwhelming mentally. Physically, we're fine. Every day, like prime example, on Mondays, we'll practice Monday nights, and at the end of every Monday's practice, we'll do what I used to do when I was in college. We'll do a 12-minute run. So we'll do a 12-minute run. They're fine. They're doing it. They're running. They're sprinting. And then on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, we'll have a competition. So whoever wins the competition, has to do whoever wins the competition doesn't have to do a gasser. The team that loses has to do a gasser. They're competing. They're getting after each other. They're doing a great job. So all those things are happening for them. Those are the positive things that are happening. They're fighting through. It's not a fatigue thing. It's not a physical thing. Like I said, it's a mental thing. That's when the frustrating part comes in because are you putting too much on them as a coach? Are you asking them to do too much as a coach? Those when you start questioning yourself, because if it's physical, and like I said, if a guy's getting dominated, if your defensive end keeps getting reached by the offensive tackle, that offensive tackle is better than he is. I mean, that's what it boils down to. But if your defensive ends keep getting reached because he's misaligned, then that's a problem. So that's the biggest thing that we're up against physically and shape-wise. These guys are good to go. We just got to get to them mentally so we can start winning some football games.
Yeah, mentally, running, even if you're not the number one route, on this passing tree, you still running the route as if you was number one defensively.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Even though it's seeing the ball, the flow of the game isn't coming your way, mentally, do you break down and kind of get relaxed?
Yep.
When it comes to this week's preparation and our wow, what's our word of the week this week?
Well, as you know, it was mentality a couple of weeks ago. Last week was collaborate. And so I'm trying to figure out, because like I said, it's such a mental thing. Actually, the word of the week is learning. Learning, the acquisition of knowledge or skills through experience, study, or being taught. So are these guys learning what we're teaching them? And that's what we got to understand. That's the word of the week. It's learning. I mean, I'm trying to get these guys to understand. And not only that, as coaches, we learn. Prime example, we have a young man that transferred to us from Central Michigan. And he came late, because some situation happened in Central Michigan. I won't speak on it, but it came where he landed in our lap. Great young man, very positive in everything he does, works his behind off, does a great job. And the other day, he was upset about us running out of practice. I say, what are you upset about? He said, Coach, man, we need to be practicing on some stuff. I said, I agree with you 100%. I said, but we also got to understand that we got to be ready for the end of the game. We got to make sure we're finishing. He said, you're right, Coach, we do. We need to finish some stuff. He said, but Coach, also need to teach some things. I say, what are you talking about? He started talking about some special teams things. What about this? What about loud rain? I said, well, we did all that in training camp, but you weren't here during training camp. But you do have a good point. I said, your point is well taken. So what do? We went back to the basics again in special teams and started showing our guys, okay, because we got some new guys on special teams. They may not have paid attention during training camp. So let's redo those things. Let's go back and rehash those things that we did, and let's help those guys learn what we need to do on game day when it comes to special teams. So we started going back to some some basic fits on special teams. How to get behind the guy. You got one guy in front of him when the ball's over his head and 10 yards, one guy behind, two guys in front, make sure the ball don't go out of bounds, make sure if he fumbles it, they're there, other guys behind, make sure don't get end zone. So we went over that again. So over the basics of what we needed to do, because he was absolutely right. He wasn't here, but some of the other guys may not have paid attention. So learning all over again what to do on special teams is extremely important this week. So again, even me as a 58-year-old learned from that 22-year-old, Coach, I don't know what we're doing, so let's make sure I know what's going on and everybody else knows what's going on. And he was 100% correct. But again, you're never too old to learn, so that's why the word of the week is learning.
Learning to recalibrate your mentality, learning to collaborate outside of yourself and work with others, learning to be disciplined, learning to develop strong habits, studying, film, extra work on the field for whatever it is. And I agree with you. No matter what we do in life, we're always learning.
Absolutely.
Never can get complacent when it comes to not learning. It's always going to be something that we feel that we're good at or that we're dominant at, but it's something that we can do to sharpen that tool as well.
Absolutely. And you got to always sharpen that too. And the thing about it is, as coaches, what you have to figure out is, how does that young man learn that you're trying to teach? Because everybody learns differently. Different way of learning. So you got to find out, so is he a visual learner? Does he have to show everything? Is he a rep guy? Does he have to do reps and reps? Or can you draw it up on the board and can you just tell him about it? He has it. So you got to find out who learns. You always got to find out your slowest processor in the room, your slowest learner. If you got him on board, then everybody else is on board, because the guy with the slowest processing tools, he understands what's going on. Now everybody else understands. But you got to find out how these guys learn, and that's something else we had to go back to. Again, as coaches, when I talk about the why of the week, it's not just about the players. I'm also talking to the coaches when it comes to learning. Okay, we need to learn. Okay, how does this
personnel?
Again, it goes back to, what are we struggling with and why are we struggling with those things? Okay, let's go back to the drawing board and see how we teach these guys to learn what we're trying to teach them. So that's the other thing that's great about it.
And also, when it comes to particular players, is learning the strength of the personnel, relearning. It may figure, early on in the season, I thought this was, this player's strength. Well, maybe it's not. So, let's unlearn to relearn what his strengths are, right, and what he is capable of doing to help us move into that win column. Got Zach back last week, which is a big plus. And expectedly coming off of an injury and missing a couple of weeks. Definitely expected the rest to come off. How has he looked so far in practice this week?
Well, like I said, going into the fourth quarter, he looked real good. And so this week in practice, he's also been looking good. It's one of those things he's got to work through. It's a rib thing, so it's a situation where he's got to turn his body at all times. So it's a matter of working that kink out more than anything else. But he's doing a good job. Again, the thing that's more important with Zach is that he has a level head, that he goes into that huddle and guys understand that he's running the offense the way it needs to be run, and that confidence that he gives our offense. That's the thing that's extremely important. So that's why this game, this week is extremely important, and that he's learning, exactly what we need to do and who can do what for him, and who's his best target and who's his greatest target, and can we get this running game going? And there's certain things he can do and certain things he can't do, and we got to be smart as coaches, when we're playing him in the game. But his confidence and his leadership is more needed now than anything else.
When, this week you got St. Francis, you can just talk a little bit about, the challenges that you may see or the benefits that you may see in this week's matchup.
Well, the biggest challenge is, they're 0-6 and we're 1-6. So the biggest challenge is we don't think and overlook this team. We can't underestimate St. Francis. The one thing since I've been here and every year that we played St. Francis since I've been here, they are tough. They're a tough, hard-nosed team. Their coach played offensive line 11 years in the NFL. He's a hard-nosed coach, and that's how they come out and that's how they play. They're going to try to run the ball down your throat. They play some bare front on the other side to get after you. They do a great job of causing turnovers. So we can't go in there with the whole aspect of their 0-6 team, because we beat just as many Division I teams as they have, which is none. So we got to make sure we go in there with the right frame of mind and help these guys understand this isn't going to be an easy game. These guys are looking the same way they're looking. They're 1-6, we're 0-6. Let's see if we can go ahead and win this football game. So we got to have the right mindset. So the first thing I don't want to do is overlook these guys and make that mistake of doing that. Second thing is these guys are talented. They got some good talent on that field. And it's one of those situations where things are a little tough for them right now because they know after this year or in 2 years they're going to go to D3. So a lot of those guys are getting after it right now. So you don't know if they're going to try to go in the portal or whatever the situation is. So a lot of them are getting after it. They're trying to run through guys. They're doing a great job on defense, great job on offense. Like I said, he's an ex-offensive lineman. So the offensive line is always stout and always solid, and they're always trying to get their running game going. The only reason their running game hasn't gotten going the way it needs to is they've been behind in most of the games, so they had to pass a little bit more. But these guys can run the ball. They get after it. They got 3 stables of running backs that I think are real good guys, and they get after it. So they're a tough, hard-nosed team, and that's how they're always going to play.
Speaking of running backs, how have the stable of running backs been looking for the Colonials?
Well, Ethan's been that steady Eddie for us. Ethan last week, I think he had like 40 or 50 yards rushing. He had 113 yards receiving. So Ethan's that steady Eddie for us. Ethan, he had a touchdown. He's had our only touchdown. So he's still busting his behind getting after. So he's going to always be our guy that goes in there. We're still trying to get Wack going the way he needs to do. Again, I always tell people when you go in a transfer portal, you find a good player. Wack was at UMass and he transferred to Purdue State, and we got him from Purdue State. But it's a situation where he hadn't played for 2 years. So it's a situation where he came in, even though his film looked great and he looked good in practice, he hasn't played college football for 2 years. So he's still getting up to the speed of college football and things like that. And another guy that we got named Owen McGraw, same situation. We got him from Eastern Michigan. Now we got another young guy by name Taj, and Taj has been doing a great job of just but he's been a little bit injured lately, but he's finally coming back. So he has an idea of what he can do and how he can make it get done. So we're excited about getting him back. So we got 4 guys. We're still trying to get it out of them, making sure we're getting it in the right direction, still trying to get that running game going. But Ethan's been that steady Eddie for us, and Ethan's a guy, when you need a 3 or 4 yard gain, he's going to get it for you.
You still got quite a few games left on the schedule. What's your message to your team, about, of course, the learning and the mentality, and that, there's still a lot of season left?
It's what you always say, Pitch. It's just time to go 1-0. We got 5 games left. Don't sit back and, rest on your laurels. Let's try to finish where we need to finish it. Let's try to don't get mad. Let's get even. Let's see if we can finish it on a 6-6 basis. But let's worry about the first one first. I told the guys last week, it's like eating an elephant. It's one bite at a time. You can't eat it all at once. So you got to be smart about how we're going to do this thing. But we got to prepare our mental aspect of the football. Physically, we've been prepared. We can run with anybody. We can do all those things, but mentally is where we've been breaking down. So we got to make sure we're prepared for those situations for the rest of the year, making sure we're in the right spot to make a tackle, making sure we're running the right route, like you said, making sure, regardless you're getting the ball or not, going 100%. So all those things become extremely important. So the message to the team is, guys, we got a lot of football left. That's why they call it a season. Let's not get mad. Let's get even. But let's start out 1-0. Let's do what we need to do to get back on track to play football.
You talked earlier about, the competition that you have during practice to where the one side may not have to run gassers.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, for the game, friendly competition amongst the offense and defense. Like, hey, listen, I'm looking for the side of the ball that don't want to run gassers next week. Something friendly, to not only, to, continue to contribute to the learning and the mental aspect of it, but to, make it a fun challenge as well, inter-team wise. That's iron sharpen iron. That's one thing we always talk about when it comes to football is, if I'm not doing my best to beat you, then I'm doing you a disservice because I'm not trying to make you 1% better. And the goal is to get 1% better every day.
Absolutely, and I agree with you. That's something I may think about, Pitts. I appreciate that. It's definitely a situation where I may get those guys understand that and making sure that special teams stays solid. That's the other aspect that's been hurting us a little bit. We missed, Jason hadn't missed 4 field goals in 3 years, and for some reason, the last few games he's missed some field goals. So we got to get him back on track, doing the right things and putting us in a situation to get those points where they need to be at. So again, it's been a tough situation for us. Everybody's been mentally struggling, but we're hoping to get this thing back on track this week and get things rolling in the right direction.
Well, Coach, I look forward to this week. Every week is a fresh start, regardless of last week's laurels. You always have another opportunity to be on the right side of victory. And this week seems like a fine time to get on the right side of victory.
I agree with you 100%. And that's why they call it a season, because you got another one next week. So got to make sure you stay with that. But before we go, how did little man do? You sent me a text, man. He showed out last week. So you got to let everybody know how he played.
Oh man, I'm given the circumstances, man. I'm so proud of him. One thing that I told him, his season's over. I didn't agree with a lot of things that I shared with you off camera
right.
in regards to the development and everything like that. But I'm never one to step in. I feel like my job is to reinforce what he's learning.
Absolutely.
From a football perspective. But I really wasn't too up to par with it because he went from offensive tackle. He was never really an offensive tackle, but I didn't say anything because I felt like for me, it was important for him to get that bump every play just to know what it's like to get hit because he's never he never played before. But as the season went on, man, I just watched him grow and mature. And, I challenge him every week in something different. Your eyes, your hands, or, on defense, are you using your hands and shedding the block, or are you letting the block get too close to you? Are you able to shed the block and still keep your head up and the eyes, in the backfield to see what's going on, whether it's a pass or run. Middle of the game, he got switched to linebacker. I think he got switched to linebacker in the first 5 tackles. It was all him alone.
There you go.
Then he had a catch. Tight. Then they moved into tight end too as well. Moved into tight end, had a catch for about 39, 40 yards, touchdown. So he definitely has the size, but my goal, as a previous athlete, but as a father, is just to make sure that he's mentally sound for what the game has to offer. Because physically, your body goes as your mental goes. So physically, I think that, he's going to get where he need to be. I'm going to definitely put him with an athletic trainer. My dad is going to start working out with him in the weight room, getting him some food, getting his nutrition and everything up as well. But I'm severely excited. I'm glad he's not me. I'll say that. I'm glad he don't have my attitude. I'm glad he don't have my outspokenness. I do hope he developed it in a way where he speaks up for himself and not allow everything to just run over him. But I'm proud of him, man. And on top of that, my only challenge to him was, as a student athlete, you're a student first, and he's only in the 8th grade, and he's always maintained a 3.7 or higher. So nice. My challenge to him was, I'm not going to ask you about homework. I'm not going to ask you about schoolwork. I'm not going to do any of those things. I want you to show me that you can handle both being out there on the field and maintaining your grades. And, we got the halfway grades in, and my man, he just killed it. It was all A's and I think 1 B. So he definitely showed me that he has that it in him to be able to maintain his responsibility academically first, and then athletically second. And the other thing was, I'm glad he didn't lose his fire. He didn't lose his love for football. He didn't lose that it, And I got a text from a coach, Annapolis area high school coach, telling me that he was at the game and, he wanted to talk to me about my son. He likes the potential and he really has the right size that he think can fit to help grow him into a real good high school football player. So that was not something that I expected. When it's your child, you always think your child is, the best. But I knew going in, it was his first year, but he definitely surpassed the test for me as a football player. He passed what that was, but then he exceeded it because he did something that I didn't do. He maintained his grades at a level that was superior.
You know what, though? The crazy thing is, man, you're teaching them the 2 most important things about the game of football. 1, have fun. Make sure it's still a game. That's what people forget sometimes. This is still a game. This is not real life, man. And it's a privilege to play this game. Yeah. Having the opportunity to play football and understanding that it's a privilege and it's a game is extremely important. That's what you're teaching him. That's extremely important, man, that, hey, enjoy this game, but at the same time, understand when this game's finally taken away from you, it's taken away from you. There is no walking in Walmart and getting 80,000 to scream for you. It's now you can't walk around with pads and looking for a pickup game when you're done playing football. You're done.
Yeah.
So that's the thing about this game, man. And so you're teaching him exactly what he needs to know, man. It's a privilege, and love this game, man, and enjoy the game and understand, just have fun at it, man. So you're doing a good job, man. great job. I don't need to tell you that. I think your dad's probably told you that enough, but I just want to reiterate, man, the way you're letting him play football and not putting pressure on him to play the sport, that's why he loves it. That's why he's developing. That's why he's growing, and that's why he's enjoying the sport, because his dad's not down his throat saying you need to do this, you need to do that. Even though you may not agree with some of the stuff the coaches are saying, that has nothing to do with it. The simple fact that you're relaying what those coaches are saying, and you're telling him this is what the coach is asking you to do, that's what you need to do. That's how you handle it more than anything else. So
don't get it twisted. I definitely get on his ass though. I ain't gonna make it seem like I don't. Especially.
Oh no, I know you do.
Because I know my child, and when I see an effort that is less than the effort that I know he can give, I'm like, that offensive lineman is slower than you. Why are you taking so long to get around him? Yeah. Why are you taking so long to rip it? Go. Yeah. You got an open shot at the quarterback. Don't slow down. This is football. He signed up for it just like you did. But other than that, my dad, my dad is at every game, and sometimes I be more worried about him than everybody be worried about me, because while I'm on the field taking photos of my son's game, I can hear my dad in the back, and I just be like, man, I know if I was out here doing what my dad is doing, they'd be like, you know what? I'm tired of this family. But it's the family, man, because listen, every morning, before his game, my mom called him. My mom tell him I need a body. My mom is like, I need something. I need some hits. I need some tackles. Like I need a sack. I need a body. Like, this is football. This ain't for play. I need you out there striking kids like your dad used to, or my female cousins. They were my biggest supporters when I was playing, and even them, they come up to his game, or just even giving him that encouragement and what this sport means to our family, and how important and how seriously we take it.
But that's what makes you love this game, man. And hopefully we can get our guys to understand the same way your son understands, and have fun and understand it's a privilege, man, to take care of business. And let's go, Bobby Moore.
Listen, man, y'all already heard it here. It's your boy Pitts Sports Zone, Bowie TV. Coach Bernard Clark Jr., a.k.a. the Eye of the Tiger, a.k.a. Tiger. It's going down. This week, Robert Morris got Wagner on the schedule. St. Francis on the schedule. I'm thinking Wagner because that's the game that I'm going to be up for on November 8th. So I'm already excited and salivating at the lips for that one. But let's get it, man. You heard it, Coach. Let's go 1-0. Robert Morris University. Let's get it.
Much love.